You know that feeling when you want to really get something complex, but the idea of sifting through endless articles and reports feels, well,
Yeah,
endless.
totally. Overwhelming.
That's exactly what we're tackling today. Consider this your shortcut to becoming seriously well-informed, uh, without the headache.
We're basically taking a big stack of information and boiling it down to the essential insights tailor-made for your understanding.
Precisely. You've sent over a fascinatingly broad range of sources, and our mission is to synthesize it all into a clearer, richer picture of India.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking history that still echoes today, the vibrant tapestry of its culture, how it navigates the complexities of governance, the technological leaps shaping its future, and its dynamic role on the world stage.
Yeah, quite a mix.
Expect some surprising connections and those, satisfying aha moments.
The material you've provided is incredibly diverse, which is fantastic. We have historical analyses drawing perhaps from the Bihar Public Service Commission, given the BPSC references we'll be touching on, offering those foundational perspectives.
Oh.
Then there are government reports, like the TRAI data on teledensity, giving us a snapshot of the present.
Right, real-time data.
We also see policy documents, such as the National Logistics Policy, outlining future pathways, alongside interpretations from, say, foreign universities and the Vice President's commentary, adding valuable layers of context.
Got it.
Our focus today is really on extracting the most critical knowledge nuggets from each of these.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Let's unpack this by diving into some of the historical threads that weave through these documents. One of the really compelling aspects is the early resistance to British rule.
Yes.
We see the Birsa Munda movement and the Indigo Revolt highlighted.
And what's particularly insightful here, I think, is how these seemingly localized movements actually laid crucial groundwork for the larger freedom struggle.
Oh, so?
Well, take the Birsa Munda movement. As a BPSC material suggests, this tribal revolt, spearheaded by Birsa Munda, wasn't just about land rights or, political autonomy. It delved into social and cultural issues, fostering a powerful sense of tribal pride. It makes you realize that the fight for independence wasn't a single monolithic movement,
Right, not just one thing.
but a collection of diverse resistances, each addressing specific grievances and contributing to that growing anti-colonial sentiment.
That's a great point.
Mm.
And then we have the Indigo Revolt in Bengal during 1859-1860.
Yes, another key one.
The BPSC analysis clearly outlines the brutal exploitation by indigo planters, the paltry wages and exorbitant rents inflicted on farmers in areas like Nadia, Jessore, and Midnapore.
Terrible conditions.
Figures like Dinabandhu Mitra and various peasant leaders emerged. This feels like a more direct clash over economic injustice. Was there a through line from this to later nationalist economic thought?
Oh, absolutely. The Indigo Revolt starkly exposed the economic underpinnings of colonial exploitation.
Okay.
While the immediate aftermath saw a commission of inquiry and a decline in indigo cultivation, the BPSC sources indicate that the fundamental economic plight of the peasants didn't drastically improve.
So, not a quick fix.
No, not at all. But its significance lies in demonstrating the power of organized peasant resistance against economic oppression. It arguably planted seeds for later nationalist economic critiques of British rule and the fight for fairer economic policies.
That growing discontent, fueled by these localized resistances, eventually coalesced into the broader Indian national movement.
Exactly.
The BPSC material provides a helpful overview of the factors at play. It wasn't just one grievance, was it? It was a whole constellation of issues.
Precisely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see a potent mix of socio-economic factors. The oppressive land revenue systems like the permanent settlement and the Ryotwari system.
Right, those infamous systems.
They created widespread economic hardship across different regions. Simultaneously, you had these burgeoning social and cultural movements.
Like the reformers.
Yes. Think of reformers like Raja Ram Mohan Roy challenging deeply entrenched social evils such as sati, alongside the rise of nationalist literature from figures like Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, which really started to ignite a sense of shared Indian identity.
Right, and the British themselves, through their policies, inadvertently stoked the flames of nationalism.
Totally.
The divide and rule tactics, the heavy-handed repressive measures following the 1857 revolt, all of that seemed to backfire and galvanize resistance.
It really did.
And the sources also mention the impact of global events, like the Russian Revolution, which offered a powerful example of challenging imperial power.
Definitely. These external influences shouldn't be underestimated.
This raises a key question.
Yeah.
How did this nascent national movement, born from such diverse roots, actually evolve into the freedom struggle that ultimately succeeded?
Yeah, the path wasn't straightforward.
The BPSC analysis helpfully breaks this down into distinct phases.
It does. We see the 1857 rebellion as this initial, albeit ultimately unsuccessful, large-scale eruption of resistance.
The First War of Independence narrative.
Right. Then comes the formation of the Indian National Congress in 1885, initially focused on more moderate, reform-oriented demands.
Okay, starting cautiously.
This laid the groundwork for what's often called the moderate phase, marked by events like the partition of Bengal and the Swadeshi movement, with more assertive leaders like Tilak beginning to demand self-rule.
So, a gradual escalation.
Exactly. And then, of course, the transformative arrival of the Gandhian phase.
Oh, Gandhi, a total game changer.
The Gandhian phase, with its innovative strategies of non-cooperation and civil disobedience, exemplified by the iconic Salt March, truly mobilized the masses in an unprecedented way.
You see the scale shift there.
Definitely. The powerful call to the British to quit India in 1942 represented a decisive shift in the struggle.
The final push, almost.
We should also remember the revolutionary movements, such as the Hindustan Socialist Republican Association, which advocated for a more radical path to independence. Bhagat Singh, for example.
Right, different approaches coexisting.
It was this multifaceted effort, encompassing a range of ideologies and approaches that ultimately wore down colonial rule.
Moving on, the sources also shed light on the history of education under colonial rule, with a specific focus on technical education in Bihar.
Yes, an important aspect.
It sounds like the British had a very particular objective in mind here, one that wasn't necessarily about the widespread development of the Indian populace.
What's particularly revealing, according to the BPSC analysis, is the stark contrast between the stated goals and the actual outcomes.
Okay.
The primary aim of the British in promoting technical education was, well, to serve the needs of their colonial administration. They required skilled individuals for engineering projects, administrative roles, and the burgeoning industries that supported their economic interests.
So the focus wasn't on empowering Indians with skills for their own broader economic advancement. It was more about creating a workforce to support the colonial enterprise.
Precisely. The curriculum was quite limited, concentrating largely on fields like civil engineering and surveying, which were directly relevant to their infrastructure and administrative needs. Critically, access to this education was restricted. The cost of schooling and the use of English as the medium of instruction effectively excluded the vast majority of the population.
A major barrier.
And indigenous knowledge systems and traditional skills were largely ignored, and the overall emphasis remained on fulfilling colonial imperatives rather than fostering widespread economic growth within Bihar itself.
The impact, then, sounds like it had both positive and negative aspects. The BPSC data mentions the establishment of institutions like Patna Engineering College and the Bihar School of Engineering around 1900.
Right, some institutions were set up.
So a skilled workforce was indeed created, but it primarily served the interests of the colonizers. Was there a lasting legacy of this narrow focus?
Absolutely. This led to a form of economic dependency, as local industries didn't receive the broad-based technical expertise needed for modernization. Social mobility remained limited, largely confined to urban elites who had access to English language education. While Wood's Dispatch of 1854 had a national vision for promoting scientific and technical education,
I've heard of that.
its implementation in Bihar was heavily skewed towards serving British needs, thus limiting its transformative potential for the wider population.
Shifting our focus somewhat, another fascinating historical element highlighted in the sources is the evolution of temples in North India in ancient times.
Oh, this is interesting stuff.
It seems their role extended beyond just religion. They also played a significant part in the economic life of the period.
Indeed. The BPSC analysis of temple development reveals a compelling progression from simple shrines, even in the Vedic era, to the elaborate architectural marvels that emerged from the Gupta period onwards.
Right.
This growth was closely linked to periods of economic prosperity and stability.
The Gupta period seems to have been a real turning point with the rise of these temple towns.
Yes, exactly.
These weren't just religious centers. They became hubs of economic activity. How did that work?
What's really interesting is how these temples acted as magnets for urban development and commercial exchange. Markets sprang up around them to cater to the needs of pilgrims and residents.
Makes sense, supply and demand.
Trade routes often converged on these temple towns, facilitating the exchange of goods and ideas. Later, in the post-Gupta period, we see the construction of grander temples like the Vishwanath in Varanasi, the Konark Sun Temple, and the temples of Khajuraho.
Iconic sites.
The Nagara style of architecture became prominent in North India, and these impressive structures also served as potent symbols of royal power and patronage.
And economically, they must have been significant drivers, providing livelihoods
Right.
and contributing to the local economy in various ways.
Precisely. The BPSC source details how the construction and maintenance of these large temples provided employment for a wide range of artisans, from sculptors and masons to carpenters and painters.
The whole ecosystem.
The constant influx of pilgrims created a thriving local economy, generating demand for food, lodging, ritual items, and other services. Temples also often served as patrons of the arts, fostering a cultural renaissance. And their extensive landholdings frequently involved sophisticated and sustainable resource management practices.
One final historical note before we move to the more contemporary landscape.
Yeah.
The unique Patna Kalam style of painting. This sounds like a fascinating artistic fusion.
It is really distinctive. The BPSC description emphasizes its unique blend of Mughal and British artistic influences.
How so?
Unlike traditional Mughal painting, Patna Kalam shifted its focus from courtly scenes and royalty to depict the everyday lives of ordinary people, their professions, festivals, and daily routines.
The common folk.
Rendered in delicate watercolors on paper or mica.
The key characteristics you mentioned, the distinctive brushwork, the subtle shading, the lack of elaborate landscape backgrounds, which keeps the focus firmly on the human figures, and the detailed portrayal of common occupations really give you a sense of a unique artistic vision.
Yes, very specific techniques.
But the source also indicates a period of decline.
Yes, unfortunately. Following the British annexation of India and the gradual fading of Mughal artistic influence in the 19th century, Patna Kalam experienced a decline in patronage and practice.
A familiar story for traditional arts sometimes.
It is. However, it's encouraging to note that there are ongoing modern revival efforts by artists and cultural institutions who recognize its significant historical and cultural value for Bihar and for Indian art history more broadly.
Okay, good to hear. Let's shift our focus now to the socio-political landscape of India. One towering figure in Indian thought, whose ideas continue to resonate, is Rabindranath Tagore.
Tagore.
Yeah.
A giant.
The BPSC source outlines his perspectives on society and culture, which feel remarkably relevant even in our present times.
Tagore's philosophical outlook was deeply rooted in humanism, placing the individual and their inherent dignity at the very center of societal progress. He was also a fervent advocate for universalism and internationalism, believing in transcending narrow national boundaries to achieve a greater sense of global interconnectedness and cooperation.
Still relevant today.
Absolutely. His insightful critique of aggressive nationalism, emphasizing its potential for division and conflict, remains particularly pertinent in today's world.
And his views on culture were equally encompassing and forward-thinking, weren't they?
Very much so.
He championed the integration of the best elements of both Eastern and Western traditions, envisioning a vibrant cultural renaissance that wasn't just about reviving the past, but also about embracing the dynamism of modernity.
A balanced approach.
And his educational philosophy, which led to the establishment of Shantiniketan, sounds incredibly innovative even by today's standards.
It really was.
With its emphasis on fostering creativity, a deep connection with nature, and holistic development.
Absolutely. Tagore saw education as the cornerstone of cultural and societal advancement. He advocated for a holistic approach that valued artistic expression and literary pursuits alongside traditional academic disciplines.
A contrast to the colonial system.
A stark contrast to the more rigid and often alienating colonial education system. His vision of cultural nationalism was inclusive and outward-looking, rejecting any form of narrow or aggressive chauvinism. He also deeply believed in the power of art as a catalyst for social change, capable of awakening consciousness and inspiring movements for progress and justice.
Moving from these profound philosophical ideas to more contemporary events, the 18th National Scouts and Guides Jamboree held in Tamil Nadu in 2023 seems to echo some of Tagore's themes of unity and national integration,
That's a good connection.
albeit on a more practical grassroots level.
Indeed. As the BPSC material details, the primary objectives of the Jamboree were very much aligned with fostering a sense of unity and national integration among young people from across the diverse landscape of India.
Important work.
Beyond that crucial goal, it aimed to cultivate leadership skills, promote environmental awareness and responsible citizenship, facilitate skill development among participants,
Yeah.
and encourage meaningful cultural exchange, allowing young people to learn from and appreciate India's rich diversity.
Zooming out to a global perspective, we have the United Nations Public Administration Network, or UNPAN,
UNPAN, right.
and its significant mandate in relation to Sustainable Development Goal 16, which, as we know, focuses on the critical pillars of peace, justice, and strong institutions.
A vital link.
This seems like a vital, though perhaps less publicly known, arm of the UN.
UNPAN, operating under the umbrella of the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, UNDESA, plays a crucial and often unsung role in strengthening public administration systems worldwide.
Okay.
Its core mandate is to promote the development of effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions, which are fundamental prerequisites for achieving the ambitious targets of SDG 16.
Right, foundation.
This involves providing support for public administration reforms, strengthening governance frameworks, and fostering international collaboration and knowledge sharing in these critical areas.
So how does UNPAN specifically contribute to the overarching goal of peace? It seems like strong institutions would be a key part of that.
Absolutely. One of the primary ways UNPAN contributes to peace is by actively promoting the rule of law and working to prevent corruption in governance, both of which are significant drivers of instability and conflict within societies.
Key destabilizers.
UNPAN also places a strong emphasis on capacity building, working to enhance the skills and professionalism of public servants, and on integrating the principles of SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions, into the very fabric of national public administration policies.
Makes sense.
Their efforts also facilitate crucial international partnerships and dialogues on effective governance reform, like through ECOSOC and WSIS.
Bringing our focus back to India, the concept of right-based e-service delivery in Bihar sounds like a very tangible and impactful way of translating these broader principles of good governance into action at the state level.
Precisely. The BPSC analysis highlights that the central focus of this approach is on ensuring that essential public services are delivered to citizens as a legally recognized right.
As a right, not a favor.
Exactly. Guaranteeing they are timely, transparent, and easily accessible through digital platforms. Key initiatives like the Bihar Right to Public Service, RTPS Act, which mandates time-bound delivery of services like issuing certificates and land records, with penalties for non-compliance.
Accountability built in.
Along with the Bihar State Service Delivery Gateway, the e-District Project, and the Bihar M-Governance Initiative are all crucial components of this right-based framework.
The RTPS Act, with its clear deadlines and accountability mechanisms, sounds particularly powerful in empowering citizens.
And it really is.
And the shift to digital platforms aims to eliminate bureaucratic hurdles and reduce opportunities for corruption.
The impact has been significant, leading to demonstrably improved efficiency in service delivery, a reduction in instances of corruption, and a greater sense of empowerment among citizens who can now access essential services more easily and directly, often from the convenience of their own devices.
Earlier, we touched upon the historical significance of temples in North India. Interestingly, the BPSC source also briefly revisits this topic in the context of their socio-political role.
Another layer.
Specifically highlighting their function as centers of social welfare in earlier times. This adds another layer to their importance beyond the religious and economic aspects.
Indeed. Beyond their primary roles as religious centers and their significant contributions to the economy, many temples in ancient India also served as vital hubs for social support within their communities.
Like community centers almost.
In a way, yes. They often provided resources and assistance to the needy, offered shelter, and played a role in community welfare activities. This historical precedent adds another dimension to understanding the long-standing importance of these institutions in the socio-political fabric of the region.
Another crucial concept for understanding India's socio-political framework is dynamic secularism.
Yes, a very important concept in the Indian context.
The BPSC material offers a helpful explanation of this, emphasizing that it differs in some key ways from the more strict separation of religion and state often seen in Western models.
That's a critical distinction to grasp. Dynamic secularism in the Indian context involves an active role by the state in promoting religious tolerance and ensuring equal respect for all religious faiths.
So not hands-off.
Not entirely. It's not about the state being completely detached from religion, but rather about treating all religions impartially, without establishing any official state religion, while also proactively intervening to maintain religious harmony and safeguard the rights of religious minorities.
So while the Indian state doesn't endorse any particular religion, it also doesn't maintain a strict hands-off approach when it comes to religious affairs.
Correct.
The challenges, as the source points out, often arise in navigating issues like communalism and the potential for the political exploitation of religious sentiments.
Precisely. Striking that balance between this active role in ensuring religious harmony and holding the fundamental principles of religious freedom and equality for all citizens remains a complex and ongoing challenge in India's socio-political landscape.
The role of regional politics is another really significant aspect of India's governance that the BPSC analysis underscores.
Absolutely crucial in a country as diverse as India.
Given India's vast size and diversity, it makes sense that regional parties would wield considerable influence.
With India's immense cultural, linguistic, and geographic diversity, the emergence of strong regional political parties like, say, the TMC, SP, DMK, to represent the specific interests and aspirations of different states and communities is a natural phenomenon.
Right.
Their significant influence is clearly evident in the frequent formation of coalition governments at the national level, as we've seen with both the United Progressive Alliance, UPA, and the National Democratic Alliance, NDA.
Where regional players are kingmakers.
Where regional parties often play a crucial role in securing and maintaining political power at the center.
This regional influence can definitely shape national policies, as these parties often advocate strongly for greater state autonomy and specific regional development needs.
True.
However, the source also points out the inherent potential for instability that can sometimes arise within coalition governments due to the diverse and sometimes conflicting agendas of the various constituent parties.
It's a constant balancing act inherent in a federal system like India's, the need to accommodate the distinct aspirations of different regions while also maintaining overall national cohesion and political stability.
Now let's turn our attention to the bedrock of India's socio-political framework, the Indian Constitution itself.
The foundation.
The BPSC source emphasizes the positive directions embedded within it as a foundational charter for social and economic democracy. This feels like a crucial underpinning for much of what we've been discussing.
Absolutely. Part 3 of the Constitution enshrines the fundamental rights, guaranteeing essential freedoms and rights to all citizens, including equality before the law, Article 14, prohibition of discrimination, Article 15, and the abolition of untouchability, Article 17.
Foundational rights.
All of which are fundamental pillars of social justice. Then Part 4, containing the directive principles of state policy, lays out the aspirational goals for a welfare state.
Guiding principles.
Guiding the government in its policymaking to achieve social, economic, and political justice, like Article 38, as well as ensuring equal access to justice and providing free legal aid for those in need, Article 39A.
These directive principles, while not directly enforceable by the courts, really set the ethical and societal tone for the nation, guiding the government in its legislative and policy decisions.
They absolutely do.
And the source also highlights the specific constitutional provisions aimed at achieving social justice, such as the upliftment of economically and socially disadvantaged groups, like Article 46, and the provision for reservations in educational institutions and government employment, Articles 15.4.
And when we talk about the Constitution's commitment to economic democracy, it directs the state to ensure that the ownership and control of material resources are distributed to best serve the common good, Article 39, and it also guarantees the right to work, education, and public assistance in certain cases, Article 41, within the limits of its economic capacity.
Important goals.
Finally, Article 32, the right to constitutional remedies, is absolutely crucial as it empowers citizens to directly approach the Supreme Court if their fundamental rights are violated, ensuring their enforcement.
A powerful tool for citizens.
Indeed.
Speaking of upholding the Constitution and ensuring its supremacy, the judicial review jurisdiction of the Supreme Court is a vital power.
Hugely important.
The BPSC material provides a comprehensive overview of this important aspect of Indian governance.
The power of judicial review, which is firmly rooted in Articles 13, 32, and 136 of the Constitution, grants the Supreme Court the authority to examine the constitutionality of laws enacted by both the Parliament and state legislatures,
Checking the legislature.
as well as executive actions and orders issued by government bodies and tribunals. It serves as the ultimate check and balance, ensuring that all laws and actions are in conformity with the fundamental principles enshrined in the Constitution.
So if the Supreme Court finds a law to be in violation of the Constitution, it has the power to declare that law null and void.
Correct. Strike it down.
But there are also limitations to this significant power, right? The source mentions that the court cannot review laws based on mere questions of their wisdom or desirability.
Right. It's about constitutionality, not policy preference.
And that the Parliament has, to some extent, sought to limit the scope of judicial review through constitutional amendments, such as the insertion of laws into the Ninth Schedule.
That's correct, though that's also been subject to judicial scrutiny itself. And the BPSC source rightly highlights several landmark Supreme Court cases that have significantly shaped our understanding and application of judicial review.
Like Kesavananda Paradi.
Exactly. Cases like Kesavananda Paradi, which established the fundamental basic structure doctrine of the Constitution, Minerva Mills, Golaknath, Maneka Gandhi, and S.R. Bomai, each represent crucial milestones in defining and clarifying the scope and limitations of this vital power of the judiciary.
We've discussed the broader national political landscape, but the BPSC source also offers insights into the specific political transformation that has occurred in Bihar over time.
Yes, zooming into the state level.
It sounds like there's been a notable shift in the dominant political dynamics.
The analysis suggests a discernible shift away from a political landscape solely dominated by past-based considerations towards a greater emphasis on development-oriented issues.
A move towards visas.
Although it acknowledges that caste continues to be an influential factor in Bihar's political dynamics. There's been a noted improvement in aspects of governance, social justice initiatives, and the overall law and order situation in the state, curbing earlier issues of violence and organized crime.
That's significant progress.
The significant decentralization efforts, particularly the reservation of 50% of seats for women in Panchayati Raj institutions, are a noteworthy aspect of this transformation.
Empowering women at the local level.
Along with the observed increase in voter turnout in recent elections, indicating a greater level of political participation and engagement among the populace.
Another interesting element of India's federal structure that the BPSC source brings to light is the role and function of zonal councils.
Right, these aren't always top of mind.
I must admit I wasn't very familiar with these bodies.
Established by the States Reorganization Act of 1956, zonal councils are essentially advisory forums created to foster greater interstate coordination and cooperation within specific geographic regions of India.
Ah, okay, regional cooperation.
Article 263 of the Constitution provides the legal basis for their establishment. There are currently 5 such zones, and their primary objectives include promoting national integration, facilitating socioeconomic development across member states, and encouraging collaboration in areas such as transportation, communication, and crisis management.
So the composition involves high-level representation from the states within each zone, with the Union Home Minister as the chairperson, along with the chief ministers and home ministers of the respective states, as well as lieutenant governors and administrators of union territories where applicable.
Correct. High-level representation.
It sounds like a significant platform for regional dialogue and problem solving.
Exactly. They convene for regular meetings to discuss and find solutions to interstate issues, coordinate the implementation of national policies at the regional level, and exchange ideas and best practices in governance.
Are their decisions binding?
While their recommendations are advisory in nature, they carry considerable weight with both the central and state governments. The source provides examples such as the ongoing Mahanadi water dispute between Odisha and Chhattisgarh, and the long-standing boundary issue between Karnataka and Maharashtra, where zonal councils have played a role in facilitating discussions and seeking amicable resolutions.
Okay, so a forum for hashing things out.
The underlying principle guiding their work is the paramountcy of national interest, meaning that regional concerns are addressed within the broader framework of national unity and progress, balancing regional and national goals, like with the National Highways Development Project.
The BPSC source also delves quite deeply into the persistent and complex role of caste in Indian politics, with a particular focus on its manifestations within Bihar.
Yes, a very complex and sensitive topic.
It seems that despite significant social and economic changes, caste continues to be a major factor in the political landscape.
The historical influence of caste in India, from the colonial era's separate electorates to the widespread mobilization along caste lines in the post-independence period, is undeniable.
Deeply embedded.
Even in the present day, caste continues to exert a significant influence on electoral dynamics, often shaping vote banks and political alliances. Reservation policies, which were implemented to address historical injustices and promote social equity, also contribute to the continued relevance of caste in political discourse. Unfortunately, caste-based discrimination and violence persist in some areas, and the rise of political parties explicitly representing specific caste groups like BSP or RJD underscores the ongoing importance of caste in Indian politics and leadership selection.
The source touches upon several key issues arising from this, such as the demands for reservation from dominant castes like Jats or Marathas,